So in this example, I'm just going to go over how to create a simple C# console application that will retrieve the set of processes running on the current machine. That is to say, we're going to retrieve processes, that means applications running on the current machine, and we're going to display those to the console window. And like I said, this is a basic example, so I'm just going to go ahead and start out by running Visual Studio 2010, and I'm going to create a new project, file new project, and we're going to call this project, we're going to call it process print, because we're going to print some processes. Well, actually, I called it print process, but that's fine. So call it what you feel like calling it. Click on the console application, make sure that project type is selected. C# is the language, and then we'll click OK, and we'll go ahead and create the project. If I open up Solution Explorer, we can see what's in the project, and that we see program.cs. Okay. This is just basically the default file that gets created, and there's a couple of things to mention about this. I usually go here, by the way, and right click on this project, print process, right click on it and go to properties, and I usually set the target framework to 4.0. The client profile has different things that are available to it, different what's called assemblies that we can use, and we want to have, I think in this case we want to have full assemblies, because in my examples I'm going to use many different portions of the .NET framework. So in this example, like I said, I want to show you how to print processes currently running. You're going to find that this is pretty straightforward, but I just want to kind of go over this. I'm going to be adding a using statement to system.diagnostics, and I'm actually just going to use this this method here, get processes. It's off of this class process. Now this is a static method. I do not have to create an instance of this process class, and actually what it's going to return is an array of processes. So I can actually current procs is the name of the variable, and I can actually go ahead and return the processes currently running. Now, in order to view each one of these processes, we're going to need to do a for statement. There's several ways to accomplish this, but typically we can loop through each one of these processes. Now, there are several ways to do that. What I usually use is this for statement, and I'll explain it in just a moment. Now, let me explain this. The for statement, it's a certain syntax, so we have a certain form that we can will use when we type in the word for, and this format here, you need to have these parentheses here, and there's a certain form. So the first thing we need is the variable name that's initialized, the initial conditions, okay, for the for statement, and then we want to have the termination statement. Okay, this will tell us when does this terminate. Okay, this terminates when x is less than the current process.length. Now remember, this is an array, and the length property will tell you the number of items in the array. But it's zero based when we access the processes, like an array is zero based, and so we want to stop when it's less than current process.length. And because if we use the length, it would be outside the bounds of the array, and we don't want to do that. So in this here, this x++ will cause the x each time the code is executed within this for statement to increase by 1. And so, at some point, the current processor length will terminate as long as this length is not infinity. Okay. So anyway, that's just the basic structure of this for statement here. And now we're going to actually do something. I'm going to use the console.writeLine, and I'm going to put in text process name, and I'm going to put this bracket here, 0, because what that's going to do is we'll be using that in just a moment to replace that with the actual process name itself. And we're going to do process ID, and we have another parameter here. And so now what I'm going to do is current process procs, and I'm going to access the array, the index of the array, and I'm going to use the process name. And the next argument is going to be current procs process ID. So it's going to be actually just ID in this case. Okay, so we're going to add something at the very end here that's going to be a little bit of a it'll break. It'll cause it to wait for input, require input. And actually, one thing we're going to do here, we're going to change this. We're going to actually put a message saying that we're retrieving the processes on this machine. Okay, now we're going to run this. Okay, now I know this this seems like a lot of text here, but these are the processes currently running, and it did in fact retrieve the processes here. Now I know this is a very simple example, but I wanted to illustrate that this is the basic structure of the application, that this is the entry point to the application. This is the first method that is called, and this is some code here that's able to retrieve the processes on this machine and display them. So hopefully that example will be helpful, and that's just a very basic one. I'll be doing other examples as well.